Hey, ladies and gents, welcome to the Controlled Interest Gamecast, where we talk about video games and everything happening in the industry. As always, I'm joined by Dom.
A pleasure it is to be here with both of you today.
Pleasure, yeah. Jordan's back this week.
Yes, a pleasure indeed.
Pleasure indeed. So, we didn't have you last week, Jordan, so I guess we'll start with you, what you've been playing, but also you got to give us another tease for that mystery game.
Yeah, well, the thing is you guys, you didn't miss out because it's just being bumped to this week, but it's going to take you a little bit longer, I guess. So, or, you know.
We lost out on a week we could have had.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could have been, breaking it down in your brain. So, I want to introduce a caveat here. I'm not going to try to, distract you guys from, finding the truth. Does that make sense? I'm trying to figure out, a good way to put this. I'm not going to mislead you.
Yeah, you're not going to actively mislead us.
I'm not going to actively mislead you, and if you're, getting close to it, I'm not going to, divert you or anything like that. So I just wanted to put that out there. So, yeah, I definitely played more of this game. I'm trying to remember what exactly I told you about it. But I will say, I think I said this last time. It's got great music. It's got really great music. But it has character dynamics that are very interesting and fun, and that I really appreciate. So it's obviously a big part of navigating the game, as you guys know, since you guys love this game so much. That was a joke. I'm not necessarily saying whether this is a game you love or not.
Can I add a caveat?
Sure.
Can Dom and I collectively, so not individually, collectively get one yes or no question to ask you each week?
Ooh.
Well, you can collectively talk about it to try to figure it out. You can give me you can ask me a question, but if I feel like the answer is going to give it away, then I will kind of be vague or give you I won't answer it directly.
That's why I minimize it to yes or no questions, just that way it's not super divulgent.
Absolutely.
So it depends mostly on the question we ask, because we can ask a yes or no question that leads us nowhere, right?
Sure. Before you ask your question, I'll give you another nice, relatively hefty hint here.
Okay.
You guys know that user interfaces are very important to me. And I would say that this one gets my stamp of approval. Now, you might say that that's still pretty vague, but the fact that it got my stamp of approval should be pretty specific, because it takes a lot to get my stamp of approval on anything, much less user interface.
So I'm going to talk to Dom about this real quick. So, Dom,
sure.
I had a feeling for a question I wanted to ask, but the user interface thing leads me to believe that it's a useless question, okay? So what I wanted to ask, and this is just us talking, Jordan, you don't need to interject so you don't give anything away by accident. So, Dom, I was going to ask if this game was developed in Japan, right? Because then that can knock out a certain section of games. My issue is, most of the time, from what I remember, Jordan and I tend to agree that a lot of Japanese developed games tend to not have the greatest UI in comparison to Western developed games. Obviously, there's specific examples where they do it great. So I'm worried that if I ask that question, it's useless, because he did say that he liked the UI. So do you think that's a useless question?
No, it's still good, because you're still segmenting off a good chunk.
But don't you think that's pretty, that narrows it down quite a bit? You know what I mean?
Western or... I, to a certain extent, I guess, because of your specific taste, but I still think it's a relatively decent question. It's a yes or no.
We're never going to get there otherwise, man.
Yeah, and Dom, you can lead next week's question.
But that's the thing. I would love this to be not a year-long thing, but if it lasted 8 weeks, that'd be fun, right?
Oh, shit. Okay.
2 months? 8 shows?
So I'll switch the question a little bit, I guess.
Sure.
See, I think asking if it's a role-playing game is even more specific. I think Japanese or Western is less specific.
Let's say... you could ask the hemispheres, and that wouldn't narrow it down as much. You could say, let's divide it between, but there's not any Canadian games or anything. This is dumb.
About a continent.
So
yeah, I'm just gonna ask my initial one. Stupid. Is this a Japanese developed game? Yes or no?
Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to answer that question. I think that it would give it away. Not give it away, but it would like narrow it down a little too much.
But then your non-answer.
Since I'm not going to be able to answer the question, I will give you another hint. How about that?
Okay, I'll take another hint.
Okay. So, I said it has my stamp of approval when it comes to user interface. I will also say that it not only does it have my approval, but I am very, very pleased with. And actually, I'm gonna go ahead and give you like a bulk hint where it's basically like 2. I am very much into the character designs in this game, and the second part of the hint is I've really loved the character designs throughout this entire series, or at least the games I've played.
Oh, so it's a series.
I got
exactly. See, that's the thing is like I may be giving you like singular hints, but if you check the context clues, there might be a little bit more to it.
So do Dom and I individually get a guess each week, or is it like together? Because that's 2 guesses a week. So we'll each get a guess, Dom. So my guess
go ahead.
is Tales of Vesperia Remastered.
And Dom?
Character design is good. It's a series. It's probably Japanese because he didn't want to answer that question. Oh, man. Persona 3 Portable.
Unfortunately, gentlemen, neither of those answers are correct.
Okay.
But you've played well.
Closer.
Yeah.
We are getting one step, multiple steps closer, you could say, with all the hints that I've bestowed.
Ooh, good word.
Yeah, so definitely played some of that game, the secret mystery game. The Game of Secrets, if you will. I think that's what I'll call it, the Game of Secrets. And then I want to give a big fat shout out to the DC animated films of late. Because as you know, last year's films were not the best. Like you got Suicide Squad, Hell to Pay was just not very good, and then you had the utterly abysmal Batman and Harley Quinn, which was by far the worst DC animated movie, and the combination of both that and then the sex scene between Batgirl and Batman and Killing Joke really shows me that Bruce Timm has lost his touch, which is very sad because he's the creator of the DC animated universe. But with all that being said, 2019 has come around and we have multiple new movies out already, and they've really turned it around. So they had the Death of Superman last year, and then this year they did Reign of the Supermen, which includes the Return of Superman. So they basically done a 2-part Death and Return of Superman animated saga. And so the Reign of Superman started out, I think, in January, and was very solid and definitely a big step up from the films of last year. And then just the other day, I found out, once it had already come out, that it existed. But they adapted the Batman versus Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comic book, and announced in February, released in May. So very short time, but turned out it was very fun, really enjoyable, and really what you'd hope from hearing the words Batman versus Ninja Turtles. The action has always been really solid in these movies, and I think it's only going up. It's only getting better, and they really nailed it in this one especially. And you can see it makes sense when you think about like the fighting styles of the Ninja Turtles and the people from their world, like Shredder, for example, and then you think of the fighting styles of like Batman, the Bat Family, the people in Gotham. They match up great together in fight scenes, and it's of course just fun seeing the Ninja Turtles and the Bat Family interact. So, and then in between that, I actually kind of went out of order here, but Justice League versus the Fatal Five came out this spring, but I didn't get around to watching it until pretty much just now because of the fact that I wasn't, I've been so soured recently on some of these movies. Usually I watch them the day they come out. So, but Justice League versus the Fatal Five was also really good. It has a lot to do with the Legion of Superheroes, and Starboy comes back into the past from the future, and then the Fatal Five is involved with him in the Legion of Superheroes, and then it also heavily focuses on Green Lantern Jessica Cruz, who is recently part of the Justice League, earlier in DC Rebirth in the comics, and her whole big story arc was that she has kind of like crippling anxiety and a lot of fear. She's very fearful in a lot of situations, which you can see how that would really like play into her being a Green Lantern. So they basically deal with that story in this movie, and I thought they did a really good job with it. And then I also just thought that it was a great Justice League movie, great DC movie in general. The other cool thing about it is, similar to Batman and Harley Quinn, it's essentially kind of like a continuation of the DC animated universe, where it's basically like it could really fit into the Justice League TV series, because the characters that are there from the original series have their original designs, and then the new characters that are showing up are fitting in really well. They do a lot of like musical cues to the old Justice League series, like they just kind of have those tracks in there at some points. So there's a lot of different things that connect it back to that old series, which I'm obviously a giant fan of, and recently finished rewatching the Blu-rays. So really enjoyed that, and I'm really glad to see that the DC animated movies haven't completely fallen off, because there's enough of them. There's multiple ones a year, and so it makes sense that a bad year isn't necessarily going to throw the whole thing off, because there's multiple in development at any given time. So we still have Batman Hush coming out this year, which I am very excited about. Unfortunately, it's not going to be the Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill situation that I kind of wish it was. But nonetheless, I think it's going to be very cool. It's a really good book, and I'm very glad to see it finally getting adapted. And a little more hopeful when it comes to the future. There's a couple other ones in development. There's a Wonder Woman one in development, and then Jared, you remember Teen Titans Go to the Movies when they had the post-credit scenes with the old school Teen Titans?
I still need to see that movie, but I know about the post-credit scene, yeah. Right,
yeah. So, unfortunately, I had hoped that they were going to bring back the original series for another season on DCU, their streaming service. Uh-huh. But it looks like what we're getting for now, at least, it could change in the future, is called Teen Titans Go versus Teen Titans, which is going to be an animated film with the two teams facing off against each other, which they're the same team, it's just different animation styles. So but yeah, stuff to look forward to, and the taste in my mouth isn't totally bad anymore for that stuff. I'm still about to watch Constantine City of Demons, which the CW, with their whole Arrowverse thing, has actually done at this point 3 different web series, animated web series for the Ray, Constantine, and Vixen, and then they compile those and add a couple extra scenes in and make them into an hour and a half long movie. And the first 2 were very good. Ray and Vixen were very, very cool. Excited to see what happens with Constantine. And they brought back the actor that played him on the TV show when that got canceled, which I know a lot of people were really bummed about, because that was actually one of the better parts of the Arrowverse as far as true quality. So with all that being said, I am enjoying the DC animated movies, which is not something I could have said a year ago, and I'm very happy to be back in a good spot with them.
That's good. It's weird that they would fall off like that, but it's good to see that they corrected course and they're back on the tracks, because it could have just veered off course and you know.
Well, Killing Joke, a lot of people... Basically what happened with Killing Joke is it's such a short story that it would have been like a 35, 40-minute movie, which it was when they got to that part. And so they basically add this prelude at the beginning with Batgirl, and most of it is cool, but then it kind of goes off the deep end, and she's like...
They hobbited
trying
it.
to bang Batman on a rooftop. Sorry, what'd you say?
They hobbited it, like, you know, one book stretching it into a trilogy. Small story, making it bigger.
To stretch it out. Yeah, and it's, like I said, unfortunately that looked like the beginning of the end for Bruce Timm. Because I didn't think Killing Joke was like a disgrace or anything, and then after they do the Batgirl prelude, they just straight up do the comic, and I think they did it well. But then, yeah, dude, Suicide Squad Hell to Pay last year was just not great, but compounded with like Harley Quinn, Batman and Harley Quinn is some of the worst DC material I've ever seen.
Yeah,
it's definitely the worst animated movie. Definitely, I mean, it's like straight up. You guys know I don't like Batman v Superman or anything like that, like the DCEU for the most part. It's way worse than all of that stuff. Like, it is really, really bad. It's worse than Aquaman or anything like that. So yeah, it's really sad to see that happen, especially because that, you know, I was talking about Justice League versus Fatal 5 has like, it's like a spiritual successor kind of thing, but it definitely has connections, and the fans will definitely appreciate them. But Batman and Harley Quinn is technically the last canonical piece of the DC animated universe, which ended, you know, 10 plus years ago, and people have wanted them to add to that forever, and they haven't, you know, with Young Justice and stuff like that. So they finally decide to come back to it, and it is an utter trash fire disaster, and that's like such an awful final stamp on that awesome universe that they created. So yeah, unfortunately, you know, with Bruce Timm's last 2 entries, it's just like, man, that really sucks that you totally George Lucas'd your own deal there, you know, but it happens.
Dom, you want to tell us what you've been playing?
Nothing. Just a bit of Sekiro.
Yeah.
And that's it. I watched Endgame.
Yes, you did.
Oh, you watched Winter Soldier with
Yeah,
I like how you
watched that
apologize.
first.
It wasn't that big of a deal, but you're like, man, I'm sorry for not taking your advice of not watching Captain America first.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Well,
funny.
it was, the order of operations was funny, because I first asked, should I watch Captain America, the first Avenger, before watching Winter Soldier? To which you obviously replied, yeah. And then the following day, so I didn't listen to you, and I just went straight to Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I watched that, and then later on watched Endgame, and both were really cool. So yeah, Marvel.
Nice.
Yeah.
So Dom, since you, if you don't mind, since you don't have a lot going on, or haven't had a lot going on this week, can I ask you how in the absolute fuck you're still enjoying Game of Thrones?
Oh, sure.
How in the absolute fuck? Jared, are you still enjoying? You're still into it, right?
So I'm between you two. I don't hate it as much as you do, and I don't love it as much as Dom
people
does.
in on our chat. I have essentially checked out. I recently told you guys like I did something I never did before, where I just totally spoiled the finale episode for myself, because episode 5 got so bad for me, and just everything combining together got so bad for me that I was like actively wanting it to end and not really at all connected or attached
Also,
to the
by the way, for
characters,
people
so.
listening, we're not going to be spoiling anything. We're just talking about our feelings about the overall season, so don't worry about spoilers.
Okay. And then, whereas Dom said that the last episode 5, was one of your favorite of the entire series, right, Dom? So
Yeah, it was funny because
Jared would be. I mean, we're as far as you can get on opposite sides of the spectrum, so Jared would be in the middle, you know.
Yeah, so the Winterfell battle, I was like enamored with through the entirety of it. Episodes 1 and 2 we talked about before, I think, and I like especially episode 2 I was really into. I think 4 they did the thing. The one thing that has got me like ugh was their fast traveling. That just feels a little. It was worse in season 7, but they had a little bit of that going on. They had a little bit of that going on in episode 4 here, and I was like, ugh. But like I'm still like so into it. I was like, okay, but what happened as a result of it was exciting, and it's hard to talk vaguely here, but so it's one of those kind of things. This past
I don't
episode,
necessarily know that we need to be spoiler free.
Well, I mean, like,
Yeah.
major beats, no, but you can talk about, like, characters, like, you can say, like, oh, Danny, turning, or, like...
Yeah, so I can ask you this question, Dom. Like, are you not upset with the way that they've kind of just thrashed all the character growth that they've built up for almost 8+ years with both Daenerys and Jaime Lannister?
I guess like, the world seems to have been really enamored and infatuated with Daenerys, and I never really jumped on that train. I always thought it was a bit odd that she was so popular, because I've always thought, like, from season 1, like, I'm like, she's not a good person. Like, I always thought, like, and then along the way, like, she was kind of being kept in check, by Tyrion and Jorah, and so on. But otherwise, I kind of saw this from the beginning.
Season 1, what was she not a good person? And how was she not a good person in season 1?
Well,
what I've seen over the course of these years is her freeing slaves,
but she's also been very entitled.
Who murdered children. Like, she's the person that she's like Superman of this world, where she's like, truth, justice, and the righteous way, basically.
Yeah. So
I've always seen her as Lex Luthor.
It starts like Jared, you started to say it, where, like, in season 1, like, it sets it up like she was screwed over, and she's going to do whatever it takes to get back the Iron Throne, like, just straight up, just whatever it is. And that starts from her brother, obviously, and she's just kind of being used. But then eventually her brother dies basically on her behalf, from Drogo. But she reacts to it, like, and they mentioned this after the show, like, she reacts to it like, well, it's me now. Like, I'm the one who owns this.
The whole point is that her brother is, like, whoring her. He's her pimp, and he treats her like absolute garbage. Like,
yeah, absolutely. And she's serving, and now that she obviously is not okay with that, but she's now serving the same goal that he had. So, and throughout the way, she's, like, kind of done some good things as a result, like, as a means to get to her goal. Like, and it appears, I don't know, I just never was, like, totally bought into her being a hero, right? And the same for pretty much every character in the show, aside from maybe Varys.
I've never been in love with Daenerys. Like, I was never going to name my kid Dany, like some of these motherfuckers out here.
Yeah.
But I certainly have, up until now, seen her as the people's president, if you will. I've seen her as the breaker of chains. Like, I don't see, if Viserys had been in her position, I don't think he would have been freeing slaves or, stringing up the slavers who killed the children of the slaves. Mm-hmm. I don't see him being, like, a hero of the people in that way. Like, it was so funny because I was watching MK Ice and Fire, or not MK Ice and Fire, a song of whatever the fuck the guy's name is on YouTube. I don't know. He's talking about how, like, he was showing the scene of the slaves calling her Misa, meaning mother, and, like, you go from that, if you just think about that scene of, like, people literally lifting her up in the air, calling her mother in their native tongue, and then you just look at her conquering the city with, as few casualties as possible. All she's got to do is head straight for Cersei and take her down, and then the scene is she just looks around, and then fuck it, she decides to destroy everything that she just conquered, by the way, which, if nothing else, she just made a giant mess for herself.
Definitely a mess.
If you want to look at it from a detached position of not even, like, all the people that she just brutally and uselessly slaughtered, for people that had done nothing to her.
Yeah.
And the complete and utter heel turn, the Mad Queen shit that they've been leading us to believe has been so quick in this season. Where, really, to me, the only, like, fucked up shit that she did, or the only thing that you could say is fucked up shit, is when she burned the Tarleys for not bending the knee. But even still, we wouldn't say that of any other ruler or general of an army, especially if they were a man. Now, they may not have used fire to kill those guys, but if you're looking at your enemy that you just fought a battle with, and they're not willing to concede and bend the knee, Ned Stark's chopped people's heads off for treason, or for,
absolutely.
For whatever. So I don't think that makes her a bad person. Before this season, that's the only thing I can think of where you could point to it and almost convince me, hey, she's a shitty person, or going down that road at least. Whereas they just completely try to, within the course of a few episodes this season, try to make you think that she's this, mad queen. And she's just not. And, the memes are flowing generously at this point when it comes to Game of Thrones. And one of my favorites is seeing the... people just keep replaying the old Inside the Episode where it's Benioff and Weiss talking about, she isn't her father. She isn't the Mad King. She isn't going to go and, burn them all and do all that stuff. And then that's exactly what she does. And I do not think for a second that they were trying to mislead you. I think that once, the game plan for since Season 1 was not, we'll get to Season 5 and finish out where George is with the books, and then we'll go on from there on our own. I know from the bottom of my heart that they had to be saying, well, by the time we get to the end of George's books, he'll have written another one, And there was no way that they could have expected or anticipated that in 2019, George R. R. Martin's next Game of Thrones book would not be out. So I think that once the road underneath them ran out, I think things went very much downhill, and I think that things changed. I don't think that the decisions that are made or the character points that are happening right now, I don't think that was originally the plan, and I don't think that that was originally the way that things were going. I think that you can see a lot of things seeded in earlier seasons that are not coming into play that were clearly meant to mean something. They were really seeding them hard, and you can tell that some things just fell by the wayside, unfortunately.
Yeah, I guess my thing was I just saw a bunch more signs throughout a bunch of the entire series. I never felt totally comfortable consistently with her, as being a hero. And like you said, even with everyone else too, like you said, Ned Stark executed someone in the first episode. So I think I'm more like nobody is good here. And the whole premise, my whole thing too, is the premise of her right to the throne is built on, her dad was the last king, but her dad shouldn't have been. He was rightfully executed, and to me, Gendry has more right to the throne than anyone, right, as a Baratheon, because that was a slightly more just way to get to the throne. But at the end of the day, they all get there through force.
When you conquer a nation, when you conquer Westeros, and you kill the Mad King, and you're Robert Baratheon, and you're now on the throne, they don't have claim to the throne anymore. You conquered the land.
Right, it's just by force, yeah.
And so this whole, Daenerys is the true queen, Daenerys is the true queen. I agree that, that's not necessarily Gendry Baratheon, because he is a bastard.
True, yeah.
But he should probably at least be in the conversation, whereas, you don't have the right to the throne anymore unless you reconquer it, which she does end up doing. But... yeah, it's a Baratheon throne at this point, which, in turn becomes a Lannister throne. But real quick, Dom, what about Jaime Lannister? Because I feel like, maybe you could convince me in some, alternate universe that Daenerys was, always meant to be the Mad Queen, or that she was on that path. But it's clear as the day is long to me that they had Jaime Lannister on a redemption arc. Now, he was never going to be the true golden boy, and he was never going to look like Ned Stark in our minds. He wasn't going to be that pristine. But the way that he sacrificed so much for Brienne, literally his hand, his fighting sword hand, and has done all of these things to help kind of the good guys, if you will. And has done so much to redeem himself, has been through so much and gone through so much to redeem himself. The part where he says, Cersei's hateful and I'm hateful, so fuck you, bye. Basically.
Yeah, that's definitely more complicated.
Absolutely inexcusable for me.
Because what made me, they led me down that, and I kind of felt like that's how it had to be, was when Tyrion pointed out to him earlier this season that you always knew what she was, because he tried to play it off like, you saw that she was so hateful, right? But then Tyrion said, no, you saw it too. You knew exactly what she was, and you still loved her. I think that was in episode 2, probably, or whatever it was, right? And I was after that, and after everything, I was kind of actually uncomfortable, and I didn't really like the decision to have him hook up with Brienne the way he did. I thought that felt a little too corny and happy-go-lucky for me. And so, like, I kind of felt it made sense that he went back to her. I was still, like, unsure if he was going to follow through or he was going to try to kill her himself. But I could see, like, that's complicated, and I can totally see, like, anyone's, wanting it to be a different way. Like, that one I'm like, I'm indifferent to, I guess. But I do think that when he pointed out, like, oh, I've done this and I've done that, all these horrible things, it's kind of reminds you, like, yeah, like, what's he going to do, stay in Winterfell with Brienne? Like, no, like, he's committed so many crimes. Like, remember the Red Wedding? Like, he's, like, so many things. I'm like, I thought it was weird that they didn't, they didn't execute him immediately after that battle. You know what I mean? So that one's more complicated, but none of it really, like, bothered me.
So before we hop into what I've been playing, because we're running a little long, I'll give my quick thoughts on it. So like I said before,
please,
I'm in between you guys. So if Jordan's a 0, and I know you're not necessarily a 0, but just for the context of where I fall, say Jordan, you're a 0, say Dom, you're a 10, I'm probably like a 6, 7 maybe. I'm close to more liking it than disliking it. What I will say is that
so
I think
let's say you're enjoying yourself.
I'm enjoying it, yeah, but it's not nearly as much as I've enjoyed previous seasons. So I'll try to go through everything real quick so I can get to what I've been playing. I'm cool with the Daenerys stuff. I think the foreshadowing has been great throughout the show to show that. I think the problem it affects people more in terms of how quick it happened is because I think the whole season in general is truncated and it feels like everything's rushing. I think if this was like a full season of her turning, I think people would be able to look back on the foreshadowing we've had the first 7 seasons. But because it's so truncated,
foreshadowing before Tarly.
Yeah, there's
she killed the Tarlys.
There's a scene where she says, "I'll take the throne even if it's with ashes
Fire
and blood. Or whatever." Yeah. There's like multiple times where she has acts of anger where people have to rein her in. So it's like once those people disappear, it makes sense that she doesn't have somebody there telling her to not do it.
But I think we can agree that there's aggressive and there's almost like warmongering, and then there's all-out rage, totally, indiscriminate slaughter. I think that those are different.
Yeah, what I'm saying is I think because it's so rushed, it feels more dramatic and it feels like such a jump. I agree with you on that, but I do think that if it was like elongated and they could reach that culmination slower, right? I think it'd make more sense. The Jaime stuff to me is unforgivable. I hate it. I think Jaime had one of the best character arcs in this entire show and they threw it down the gutter.
Not even in all of television up until that point, I would say, Jared.
To your point about the she's hateful, I'm hateful line, I think good writing, and I'm not claiming to be a good writer, but in my opinion, the good writing would have been he says that line as a way to convince himself to go back to King's Landing because he does have it so good in Westeros with Brienne that he convinces himself with that lie to go back down there, and then it eventually culminates with him killing her or something. Him dying in her arms together is not great for its character. The thing I will say about this show, the cinematography is some of the best I've ever seen in my life, especially for a television show. I think the acting...
Probably the one thing that I liked about episode 5.
The thing is, as much as I hated the Cersei dying scene, I think Lena Headey, her acting is phenomenal. I think a lot of the acting in the show is great. The writing is a little rough. I do enjoy the show. I think like the whole Sandor and Gregor Clegane thing was great. There's a lot of stuff I like about it. Some people thought the Arya on a white horse was a bit heavy-handed. I personally enjoyed that. The thing that irritated me the most is the Jaime thing, because Jaime had one of the best character arcs and it just felt so not great the way his story ended.
Yeah, Jared, do you think that was what they were going towards in, let's say, season 5?
I don't know. I don't think so. So
yeah, I think that things changed when they ran out of books.
Yeah, and the thing too that sucks is from what I've read, HBO didn't actually mind doing more seasons. It was D&D that wanted to truncate it and end it with season 8. So they only wanted 13 more episodes, which leads me to believe that maybe they themselves weren't confident in their own abilities to go off of the books. They're like, we're just going to do 13 episodes on our own. Well, technically it would be 23 because with season 6. I don't think the writing's as bad as people say it is, but I do think in terms of the first 5-6 seasons, it is a step down, obviously.
I don't know, man. I think it's a pretty big step down. And I should also say, like, the internet is even more against this than I am.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
Like, people just all out hate this, and I think that there's hyperbole even there as well. But I just, and so I will say, like, this is not me just getting my opinion from the internet, and I know you guys know that that's probably never going to happen with me, but I'll get up on Monday and watch the Kind of Funny review or Comic Book Girl 19's review, and they're way more sour on it than I am, to where even I can find more redeeming stuff in it for the most part. But yeah, I do think that the writing has been a major step down.
The thing I will say is, like, someone like you, Jordan, who actually enjoys the lore and the storytelling and all that stuff, I'm like, okay, your opinion, I understand it. I understand where you're coming from. There's plenty of people who watch Game of Thrones and don't remember characters' names, and I hate to be this harsh, but, like, I kind of don't care about your opinion if you don't even take the effort to learn characters' names or understand it on that level. You know? That's just me. That's not a... You know,
are you talking about random people on the internet, or do you have somebody in mind?
I know people have said that about the Kind of Funny and review stuff. I don't watch them, so I'm not talking about anybody in particular. I'm just saying in general, because I've seen other people I know in real life that are like that. That I'm like, man, you don't even take time to understand people's names. The thing I will say too is you're perfectly fine with having an opinion and not liking it, right, Jordan? You're perfectly fine saying the writing's awful. You're really disappointed with the season. The people who are out there making petitions for them to redo the show, that's some real entitlement culture bullshit. Like, it's like, really? You want people to sign a petition to remake the show? I don't know. That shit's ridiculous to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think that it is the biggest turn in history when it comes to quality of a show dipping. I'm talking about hour-long live action drama here. You know, I'm not including like anime.
Kids Next Door.
Yeah, exactly. But you know, there's just some certain things when I look at The Sopranos, Mad Men, Breaking Bad, you know, just the greats of history. Like, sure, some of them may not have ended as well as you wanted or the exact way, but they did not go out with a whimper the way I think that Game of Thrones is.
Yeah.
It's really sad to see, man. It's really upsetting. Digging a little deeper into it, you can actually see examples of the cast kind of hinting towards maybe this not being as good as previous seasons, or hinting that maybe, you know, the directions and decisions that they chose for these final episodes were not what they would have done personally. So the main thing is I feel bad for the crew. I feel bad for the guys recording this beautiful show, you know, the guys doing the audio, the ladies doing the costumes, and I'm not necessarily like
don't feel too bad, because
I'm just saying
shit ton of people are watching too. So they're doing it better with views than ever.
They're getting paid, but up until this point, they had worked on unequivocally one of, if not the greatest television show of all time, right? And they're still working on one of, if not the greatest produced television show of all time when it comes to production value, right? But they're no longer working on the best when it comes to the actual content of the show, and it's all the way down to the point where plenty of people are absolutely dogging it at this point. So I do feel bad for those people that have put in so much hard work and have done such an amazing job. I mean, this episode looked so incredible. We talked about how the darkness of the Winterfell battle is kind of outside of the production crew's control and more in the, you know, how HBO compresses their digital files in their streaming service and things like that. But when this is out in the daylight, they absolutely killed it. And I will say, one of the things that I was looking for this episode, and I got, and I was very happy about for a quick fleeting moment, was seeing the shadow of the dragon loom over King's Landing.
Oh, the brand vision.
Which is a tease that we got years ago, and they nailed it. It was exactly, like, maybe not the exact same, you know, shot, but they connected it, you know. In my mind, I was like, oh, that's what that is, and it was fucking cool. I mean, the dragon stuff in this episode is really, really top notch. I mean, it obviously has a lot to do, gets a lot of screen time. One thing, quick question. Sorry, I know
we gotta go quick. Yeah.
The fire seems to have is like a concussive blast. It's not just like a flamethrower that's shooting hot fire at you, right? Like,
yeah.
It busted down the wall of King's Landing.
Yeah,
so
powerful.
That's something that I noticed, like, when she's going around the parapets around the whole city, basically, and just doom, doom, doom. It's like pushing things forward. It's not just catching it on fire.
Which would make sense if you're breathing air, right?
Force.
Air would be coming out.
And if you're, like, the lungs of that dragon have to be
huge,
extremely powerful. And so, yeah, if he's pushing out a jet stream of fire like that, it is conceivable that it would have force. But I was just surprised when, like, wait, fire just knocked down that wall?
Oh, the front gate, yeah.
The front gate. So there's some stuff like that, but that's obvious. I mean, that there are so many issues way, way bigger than that in the show at this point. So
real quick before I want to get through what I've been playing real quick so we can get to the news. With the show, I may not end up fully loving this last season, but me personally, I know some people had issues with season 6 and 7. I've loved the first 7 seasons of this show. I might probably end up just liking season 8. I still love Game of Thrones as a whole. So
I just like season 7. That's how I am with season 7.
Yeah.
I just like it.
In terms of what I've been playing, real quick, I'm stuck on the final boss of Sekiro along with Dom. We talked about it before we were recording. I would say for me so far, even though I've fought him maybe like 50 times by now. He's the hardest boss for me at the end of a Souls game. Obviously, I didn't play Bloodborne, but talking to Dom, you would say Cinder is harder than the Bloodborne boss, and then this guy's harder than Cinder, right? We would assume.
Yeah, and then as far as end bosses, but typically all the games have something along the way or optional ones that are actually like
Nameless King,
intentionally the hardest. Yeah,
Bloodborne's final boss is not its hardest.
Yeah, this end boss it's 4 phases, Jordan. It's very difficult. Man. Yeah. So I'm gonna be working on that for a while. Mother's Day, I was gonna go see Detective Pikachu, and my mom, because I grew up with Pokemon, she obviously knows how I've loved it my entire life, and she was the one who would buy me the cards and took me to see the first Pokemon movie, and she really wanted to go watch this with me just as a bond thing because she saw me grow up with Pokemon. So I went and watched it with mi madre on Sunday.
That is very nice.
Yeah, it was really cool.
That she can say, I don't necessarily give a shit about Detective Pikachu, but I know you do, and I love you, so.
Well, and Pikachu's cute, and a lot of the Pokemon in there are really cool, and she enjoyed it, which is awesome. She's very open to things like, I like musicals a lot, and I took her to see Les Miserables when it came out in theaters a long-ass time ago, and she's not really into musicals, but she's like, I'll go to the movies with you, and she ended up loving it, so that was really cool.
That's cool.
I like Detective Pikachu quite a bit. I think everything before Pikachu pops up is a little slow. It's cool because it's introducing the world, but it is very slow. And then after that, it hits the ground running. It's a very tropey by the numbers movie, but it's like Pokemon in live action, dude. It's just great to see.
It seems pretty safe. I think that's why I'm waiting to see it at home, because it's like I know that it's not going to blow my socks off.
Yeah.
I know that it's probably just going to be a pretty solid film, and so that's why I'm waiting.
Yeah. Just seeing Pokemon live action on its own is worth the price of checking it out at your house, right, through a streaming service or whatever. It's really cool.
Oh, I'll definitely watch it. I love Pokemon.
Yeah.
But it's just, and honestly, like, there are Pokemon movies that would absolutely have my butt in the seat opening night, but, like, I'm just not super into the whole thing they got going here. It's not that I'm, like, hating on it. I don't actively dislike it. It's just not catching me. It's just not hooking me. So.
And lastly, before we hop into the news, I started season 3 of My Hero Academia. So there's a movie that happens storyline wise between seasons 2 and 3, but it's not canonical.
Yes, the 2 heroes.
Yeah, so it's not technically canonical with the rest of it. So I'm gonna finish season 3 and then I'm gonna watch it. Because I was debating watching it before I started season 3, but I was like, whatever.
You're totally fine, because that's the release order, which is how obviously I watched it. So it's not like you're not gonna be like trying to remember what just happened in season 2, that they're referencing in this movie. It's nothing like that at all.
Cool. That's pretty much it for everything for me. Let's hop into the news. News.
Real quick, enjoying that My Hero?
Oh, yeah. 3? It's only, I haven't finished season 3 yet, but it's up there for me in terms of my, like, favorite anime. Like, my favorite anime ever is probably Dragon Ball Z. I don't know, I debate between Ball and just Z. But, Yeah, it's really good. I like it a lot. I mean, there's still a lot of other anime I want to watch, but I tried watching Psycho Mob 100. Didn't like the Mob Psycho. Yeah, I didn't like the animation style, so I'm kind of hard out on that. I finished the whole first episode.
You mentioned that. I didn't bring it up, but I watched episode 5 of that last night because season 2 just started, so that's why I decided to jump in. But I will say, My Hero, I think it's only gotten better with the seasons, and it's never been my favorite, but it's always been one that I enjoy,
Yeah.
and really appreciate and can like depend on for it being like a solid, dope show. And they really get into like the whole X-Men vibe, like anime X-Men vibe in season 3. So I'm glad that you're diving into that because season 3 is fucking cool, man.
That's pretty much it. Let's hop into the news. First off, we got some numbers from Activision. Red Dead Redemption has now sold. Red Dead Redemption 2 has now sold 24 million copies, which is really good. Though sales have technically slowed because.
Wait. Activision is giving us Red Dead numbers?
Well, they own 2K.
Activision owns 2K?
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Shit.
Since when?
I'm pretty sure, unless I'm confusing something.
No, 2K owns people is what I thought.
Hold on. I'm just
Take-Two.
making sure. Yes, hold on. I'm just...
Take-Two. Yeah, it's Take-Two.
Yes, sorry. My bad.
So
yes, you're correct.
Take-Two owns 2K, is that right?
Take-Two owns 2K, so Take-Two gave their numbers. Sorry, not Activision. That's my
Take-Two owns like Rockstar, 2K, Irrational Games, stuff like that.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of the other studio. Whoever makes Civilization 2. I don't remember the name of the studio that makes the Civ games.
Sid Meier.
Yeah, yes. The single man, Sid Meier. Fire Axis is the name of the studio. Anyways, so yes, Take-Two, not Activision, reported that Red Dead Redemption 2 has now sold 24 million copies. Last update we had, it had sold 23 million, so it's still selling really well, but they have slowed. Like 24 million copies is still an asinine number for a video game. We also got another update. GTA 5 has now sold 110 million copies, which is crazy.
Which is crazy, but if you think about it, Red Dead's sold, almost a quarter of that in just a few months, and I'm not saying it's going to end up anywhere near GTA, but that's,
a Western game?
Good, man.
Yeah, a Western game selling that well?
Yeah, it's old school Western. Yeah, there's a lot of things that could deter former GTA fans or, GTA fans coming to this. So.
Next up, we have some sad news for people who love ship combat. Skull and Bones was delayed again. This time it's indefinitely.
I thought you were gonna say canceled. That game is like begging to be canceled in my mind. Like the name of it just sounds like a canceled game. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So this time it was delayed indefinitely. It's been delayed before. If you guys remember when this game was first revealed, people were like, that's a cool ship combat game. It looks like it's in the Black Flag engine. Where's the rest of the game? Turns out it's pretty much just a naval combat game. The following year they came and showed it off, and they showed off a small little hub area that you can walk around between your ship battles. That got some positive buzz, but it didn't seem like it was enough. In my opinion, this is just me interjecting. I think the delay in all of this is due to them adding more of a game to it. And I think that maybe they saw that a naval-only combat game probably wouldn't sell very well, especially with the budget that Ubisoft puts into these games. They also announced that it won't be at
Sea of Thieves.
Exactly. It also won't be at E3 this year, they announced. We're not seeing it. And one thing I found out that was kind of hush-hush is the director of this game left last fall. Left Ubisoft. So that's probably also contributed to the delay in the game.
What happens is, I think they always wanted to charge $60 for this game. And when they revealed it, people were basically like accepting that it was a $60 game, but thinking that it was going to have another component,
Yeah.
And so for this to be a $60 game that they're going to get away with selling, I think that's why they've had to add so much to it. But if they had just come out from the beginning and said, hey, this is a $30 or $40 multiplayer only, you're basically the ship, and you're just trying to take other people out, not a whole lot of story or whatever, then I don't think they would have had to do all these changes. I think people would have totally been down from the get-go.
Really dope cinematics. Like the cinematics during the trailers for these are really cool.
They brought these cinematics out that made you think it was single player, or at least had a story campaign type of thing. The
AAA pirate game we want since Black Flag came out. The other thing that's crazy is that there's currently a television show in development for Skull and Bones from the Ubisoft television division. Are you kidding me? And the game hasn't even come out yet.
Out of here with that.
Yeah, it's really funny. Next up, the Nintendo Switch has now sold 8.13 million units in Japan. It's past the PS4's lifetime sales of 8.07. So it's now the number one selling console of this generation in Japan. The total numbers: Switch has now sold 35 million to date worldwide, and PS4 has now sold 92 million to date worldwide. As we talked about before the show, people may be surprised that PS4 has only sold 8 million units, but you have to put into the context of the population of a country. So 8 million units to Japan is a lot bigger of a number than 8 million units in the United States, obviously. Exactly. Yeah. Obviously, Japanese people love their mobile experiences, so a console you can take on the go is arguably a no-brainer in terms of it doing well in Japan.
And it is a Japanese product,
Exactly.
Another thing is, 8 million may not sound like a lot. Check the Xbox One numbers for Japan. It's not 8 million, I can tell you that much.
Yeah, I would say
they do not give a fuck.
I would say Xbox. 2 million at most, and that's being generous. Yeah.
I mean, we've heard stories of weeks where they sell a couple Xboxes in Japan. The entire country, maybe just a couple years after the Xbox One had come out, and they're only selling 20 units. That's crazy.
And the funny thing too is we talk about how a rumor during a big event or a big news cycle can last for years, right? So when the Xbox One announcement happened and people were hearing about all this stuff about you have to always be online and stuff, there was people into 2016 that still believed that was the case on the Xbox One, that it was just this console that always had to be online, which wasn't the case, and these rumors just stick with people. And with
once you present information, it's over.
With Japan, I think a lot of it has to do with Xbox has never really, up until the Xbox One S, had a very sleek console, and Japan tends to have smaller households, smaller products. And the Xbox was huge. Oh, yeah. The Xbox 360 initially was pretty big. It got a little slimmer with Elite. The Xbox One was a giant VCR. So it's even then why would I even buy an Xbox when they're so big? And it doesn't even cross their mind that the Xbox One S is smaller than any console. They just know in their mind that the Xbox is huge. It doesn't really have the stuff I want,
Yeah. You got to think.
Remember the Duke, Jared?
Oh yeah, that big boy.
So we got the original Xbox got a slim controller specifically because the console was about to come out in Japan, and the Japanese dudes were looking at that controller telling Microsoft this is not gonna cut it.
Exactly.
You gotta do something better than this. So that it literally changed, it forced Microsoft to change the way with which you interface with their console. So obviously that tells you that they're not about putting a fucking VCR on their entertainment system.
What were you going to say, Dom?
Oh, just that it's just one of those things that it sounds so weird because Xbox is so synonymous here and it's marketed so heavily. It's been around, but it's probably something you don't even see there. You don't see ads. You don't even see the product in stores. Probably maybe in the back corner in a tiny little shelf, right? So it's just one of those things.
Speaking of that, this is something we don't talk about in terms of Xbox putting their games on the Switch. I mean, with as little Xboxes that are out there in Japan, right? And they don't really game on PC that much. It's more of a South Korean, Chinese thing, right? Japan is pretty much about a lot of mobile experiences. If Cuphead is on the Switch, you have that in the face of 8 million people in Japan now with the Switch, right? As opposed to maybe 2 million at most. So having their games on the Switch actually gives them software sales in a country where they probably wouldn't get them, period, because of the lackluster Xbox sales. So
yeah, Microsoft's been trying to tap in. I mean, obviously I just told the story about them changing the actual controller itself, which is a huge fucking deal. I didn't make that clear enough, but they've been trying to do, Blue Dragon on 360 and Scalebound on Xbox One. They've been trying to get these,
Jade Empire,
very fucking Japanese exclusives on to their console and have the biggest creators, Akira fucking Toriyama with Blue Dragon, to show that they're about it, with DMC5 was just a thing. So they've been trying to crack that egg for a long time, and Japan's just not having it, I guess.
Earlier we were talking about Skull and Bones. During that same call, Ubisoft kind of outlined their next fiscal year. Obviously, they talked about Breakpoint coming out in October. You weren't here last week when we talked about it,
shout out.
Jordan. That's one of my most anticipated. So excited.
I was sad that I didn't get to talk about that with you guys last week, because I know you and I, Jared, really loved Ghost Recon Wildlands, and this is the next entry in that series. So I just want to say, I know you already talked about it, but trailer was a little heavy-handed in the whole tough guy Marine talk, but nonetheless, that's what fucking Ghost Recon is, and it looks like, I don't necessarily know that they needed to make such a shift, because it felt like Wildlands was a shift, right? And that was setting them onto a path of okay, this is kind of like the soft reboot of Ghost Recon. Here's where we're going forward, and it looks like they've almost done a total shift again, which makes me look at other series that didn't pull a God of War, and I understand. I just watched the documentary. I understand that's very difficult, but if Ubisoft is able to do it between Ghost Recon games after they've already kind of soft rebooted once, why are other games, tasting like stale cardboard, in certain series? So, very excited to see what they do with Breakpoint, and coming out this fall, Jared?
October 4th. A month, a little less than a month after Borderlands 3.
There we go. Oh, it's a good transition right there, because they're definitely, have some vibes to them as far as the shooter stuff. So.
Also, shout out to the Wolves, who are the rogue ghosts, wearing some Metal Gear ass outfits, looking super dope.
Yeah, dude. There's a lot of cool stuff in that the whole John Bernthal thing and all that.
Russo.
They're going a little bit. They're not jumping the shark. They're not going Blood Dragon. But you can see that they're kind of tilting that way a little bit, where they're doing a little more outlandish, kind of fantastical stuff. So
I think that's cool. Feedback, because a lot of people had issues with how stale the enemies felt in Wildlands in terms of the bosses, right? It's these are cartel dudes. It's what's interesting about them? So we'll see. On top of that report, they announced that they have 3 other unannounced AAA games that are releasing after January 1st, 2020 and before March 31st, 2020. So when I initially read this, I didn't catch the after January 1st, because they specifically said quarter 4, right, of their fiscal year. I originally thought one of those games is probably Just Dance. The other one is probably Watch Dogs or something. And then I don't know what the third one is, right? But now that this is January to March, Just Dance always comes out in the fall. So Just Dance is eliminated from that. So it's interesting.
Wow.
3 unannounced AAA games for March 31st.
2 months.
And I wouldn't. I know we've
March 1st or March 31st.
March 31st, between January 1st and March 31st. So I know we've had this discussion for a long time, Jordan, about what is a AAA game. One thing I know for certain that is not a AAA game would be Child of Light 2, which they've teased. Now, people are assuming that maybe that could be one of the 3 titles, but they specifically said AAA. And unless Ubisoft is crazy, I doubt that they would say a UBR game is AAA. So we're assuming maybe a spin-off of some sort, right? Like a Far Cry New Dawn-ish type game, like a smaller, $40 title, because they've been experimenting with those. The other 2, though, it's very tough, because they also said they'd be different genres and experiences. So I don't know what that means.
Splinter Cell.
Matt, did you see the Splinter Cell debacle on the internet the last couple of days?
No, what's that?
Oh, you didn't see this. Did you see this, Dom?
Yeah.
There's so many debacles on the internet, Jared.
Dude,
especially with fucking Game of Thrones right now.
So this game director that works on the Division 2 at Massive, Jordan, he's in wine country, sipping wine, getting drunk with a couple of other game directors from Ubisoft, having a grand old time, right? Just chilling. They launched the Division 2. The Raid recently released. Relaxing. He goes and you know what would be a really funny joke? If I tweet out that I'm currently working on the next Splinter Cell. He tweets that out. Everyone is like, oh my god, he's a game director on the new Splinter Cell game. Splinter Cell.
Piece of shit.
turns out Ubisoft got in contact with him and was like, yo, that wasn't a great joke. We're having to deal with all of this PR backlash.
You don't have a job anymore.
He thought it was funny to say that he was working on a Splinter Cell game and he wasn't. So,
what a fucking piece of shit, man. It's like, okay.
Oh, he also said wait for E3 too in that tweet.
Oh my god. So, I just watched the Telltale documentary from NoClip.
Yeah.
And my heart absolutely goes out to those people. And it was very sad to watch. Absolutely heartbreaking, right? But at the same time, there were certain aspects where I was like, okay, but how are you surprised?
Yeah.
In the gaming industry, like, we all know at this point, I remember it happening when I was in middle school reading Game Informer, watching Pandemic close. I mean, that was around the time of the recession. So, like, it's been going on for more than 10 years where we know that, like, gaming industry jobs in a studio are some of the least sturdy jobs in the entire fucking world, as far as I can tell. So it's one of those things, like, you knew what would happen, or you should have at least anticipated what would have happened. And so when I look at this guy, I'm like, you knew what would happen, asshole. You knew you were just going to piss a bunch of people off and hand Ubisoft a pile of shit to deal with. You know, you knew what was going to happen. Like, there's certain situations like this where I'm like, how are you surprised?
I just imagine this, like, drunk dude sipping wine. He's like, oh, watch this. This will be hilarious.
They were definitely they were definitely drinking because
I'm not saying it's an excuse.
Statement.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's an excuse.
The drinking would go from, oh, that's goofy, to, like, getting a little drunk. You might actually think that's funny.
Yeah.
But even still, and especially wine drunk, like, how would you ever take all of those steps and actually go about it? Like, dude, you know, like, somebody wipes their ass in the gaming industry and somebody's tweeting out about it being a leak. You know, like, the smallest, tiniest things. Need I remind you about Shadow of the Tomb Raider, which was a document that somebody was working on a train, got up to go to the bathroom, and some guy took a screenshot, and you think that people are going to know you're joking on Twitter, which everybody knows, like, text on a screen does not convey emotion very well, and you're like, oh, this will be fine. You're surprised? Really? Come on, man.
Yeah, I can't believe you missed that. It was hilarious. I mean, not for people who, like, read it and were excited, but the whole situation is, like, hilarious in how did this happen way.
The ways in which I'm connected to, you know, like, news of any kind is very tangential.
Yeah. But, man, this was crazy to see unfold live. It was really funny. That's pretty much it. We're going to be talking about, obviously, every year we do our pre-E3 predictions podcast. We bring on guests. We're going to be talking about what these 3 unannounced games could possibly be, so tune in then. They all upload the week before E3, one for every conference. We're not doing Square Enix because you don't know what you're going to get from them. So, yeah, tune into that. In terms of the next story, this came out of nowhere today. We were just going to talk about Super Mario Maker 2's Direct, which we're going to be talking about after this. But there's not a lot of information to this, so I don't think we need to talk about it for a long time. I just think it's really important in terms of the gaming industry and the landscape of, you know, cloud-based technology moving forward. So, out of nowhere, on Microsoft's website, they announced a partnership with them and Sony. And in the article, Microsoft stated, it's a pretty long article, so if you want to go and read the actual like detailed discussion of what they're planning to do with Sony, go check it out. But it states, under the memorandum of understanding signed by the parties, the two companies will explore joint development of future cloud solutions in Microsoft Azure to support their respective game and content streaming services. In addition, the two companies will explore the use of current Microsoft Azure data center-based solutions for Sony's game and content streaming services. There was also another paragraph I didn't include where they talked about AI. They're working together on AI. My big thing here is, like, I think Sony, this partnership is great for Sony, right? Partially they wasted money on, Gaikai?
Gaikai.
But this is great for them because the biggest issue we talked about with Sony is that they don't have the infrastructure Microsoft or Google does, right, with the data centers.
Well, that's the thing, Jared, is they may not have wasted money with Gaikai because this might just be Microsoft allowing Sony to look at Azure, you know, what under the hood, behind the scenes, and then take that back and improve Gaikai. You know, that might be what this
Yeah.
is.
I mean, from what I read from it, I think what you're saying can be true. From what I read from it, it's like them working together, and Sony's actually going to be using like Azure for themselves as well. But it could be the case if this is a timed partnership or it is just a partnership to learn about the technologies, right? What I was saying to you guys before this podcast started is I'm interested to see how Microsoft benefits from this, because reading the wording of the entire article, a lot of the technology that's being shared between the two, it's mostly Microsoft's technology that Sony's benefiting from. And I'm really interested to see, because I doubt Microsoft would get in a partnership with Sony if they didn't think they could get something in return. That's the way partnerships work. They didn't explain what Microsoft gets out of this. So I'm very interested to see what that is.
Other than what we've heard about Mark Cerny saying on the PlayStation 5, which I do believe him. Obviously, he's the one that's intimately connected and seems like an honest man. Other than that, Microsoft, when it comes to just straight up Xbox and PlayStation, Microsoft is obviously far surpassing them when it comes to the current state of pushing technology.
Yeah.
Which, you know, has been a Sony thing. The reason that the PS3 cost so much was because it was way ahead of its time, and it had way more features than the Xbox did. You know, features that you had to buy $100 attachments for in Xbox. So, you know, Sony hasn't been on the forefront of technology, probably because they're worried so much about VR. You know, they've been on, obviously, the forefront of that in certain ways, but not necessarily the console. You know, the PS4 Pro compared to the Xbox One is not even close. And, you know, I've talked, and we have on this show ad nauseum almost, about all the different things that Microsoft has been doing over these recent years, especially this generation, to really not only, you know, get in better standing with the fans and community, but also to just like push things forward. You know, things that need to be pushed forward in gaming. Microsoft's doing that more than either of the other two major companies in Nintendo and Sony. So, yeah, how is Sony, you know, who seemingly hasn't been, you know, pushing a lot of tech forward in the console space, what are they going to be able to, what are they going to have that Microsoft would want?
Yeah. I want to get to what you think about this whole thing, Dom. My two quick ideas, Jordan, would be the thing we talked about earlier, Japan. Like maybe they can learn how to operate their business in Japan because Sony has experience with that. The other thing could be the structure of their first-party studios. Obviously, this is top level. This is an Xbox, PlayStation. This is a partnership between Sony and Microsoft, but we assume it trickles down because those technologies will be used more often than not with the gaming slice of those companies. And I think maybe it could be the structure of their first-party studios, because in the last year we've seen Chris Booty was named the head of Xbox Studios, right? And they have the Santa Monica studio, the initiative, and they could use a little bit of knowledge in terms of how to structure your first parties, because though Sony hasn't had big fall releases, they have had a decent cadence of really good first parties come out. Though obviously the reveals.
Sorry, I wasn't trying to interrupt. I was just saying that you know, the things that you're mentioning are the things that I think they wouldn't discuss, because that's specifically like, how do we compete better against you in Japan, Sony? Whereas like the tech thing is like, you know, that's already going to be there. Like either of them could surpass each other most likely if they just chose to put the money into it, whereas Microsoft's been dumping money into learning how to handle Japan for years, and they just can't seem to do it. So that's like the stuff that you're talking about. I would think would be the stuff that they would actually be tight-lipped on.
Yeah, I mean, the only counter to that would be that if Sony's using the Azure cloud servers, that's Microsoft also handing out a competitive advantage they currently have, right? Because they do have the stable data center infrastructure around the world. It's just weird. I want to get to Dom. What do you think about this whole thing, Dom? What do you think like Microsoft gets out of it in general? What do you think about the partnership?
Well, to me, I mean, I thought of it more face value, that it's just, yeah, probably we're going to see PlayStation Now being run from Azure, right? Sony's just going to be renting server space, essentially, and network and that infrastructure, right? And so what Xbox would get out of it is like the royalties. So right,
exactly,
like, I mean, even though it's going to look like a Sony game and a PlayStation game, like Xbox is going to be, you know,
on the
breaking
back
in
end.
a lot of money on the back end because Sony has, you know, at least right now, you know, the games that Xbox kind of lacks. So it's like, it sounds funny, but I could see where, depending on, you know, the specific deals they end up having in place, where it makes a lot of sense on the back end to be raking in money, even if it, you know, the game shows up as a Sony game and you only get one, you know, Azure, you know, splash logo at the front or something. But I think it could make sense. It's tough to say, you know, without seeing the agreements and things like that. But
to that point too, like Google's a big player in all of the streaming stuff, and like I think partially Microsoft knows as much as they have with Microsoft Azure, like they might feel that they have to team up and figure out things together to be able to compete with Google and Stadia, because like Google's a big player in all of this. They have a lot of money that they can invest in it, you know. So maybe they're like, we should team up because collaborating together is the best way that we can succeed through it. So what were you gonna say, Jordan?
Also don't rule out the same thing going in that direction, where we see Xbox or PlayStation games, exclusive games, right on Stadia. That could also happen too,
True.
right? Or any other combination. It's kind of like
Most
you
likely,
can't really rule this shit out anymore.
Most likely Xbox, because PlayStation is very walled garden about it. I think it'd most likely be Xbox as opposed to PlayStation, but because Stadia won't be on consoles, I don't think, right?
I don't know. Why not?
Why would Xbox allow Stadia on their console?
Same thing, royalties, right? I don't know.
But they don't earn money from that.
But see, that is the whole confusing part about this, guys, is make no mistake, companies of this size, titans of their respective industries that are competing on this scale, do not collaborate like this.
Yeah.
This is not, I mean, this is like
Weird.
Marvel and DC getting together in the 90s or whatever. Stuff that is like, feels like something from a parallel universe almost. And so it is confusing. Are they trying to posture against Stadia and Google, or are they becoming more open, or are they just trying to get some of the knowledge that each of them does not have but does desire? Any of that's possible, but I do think that I mean, this is weird to say because you've got an example of direct competitors working together right here, but I don't necessarily think that you're going to see Stadia on these consoles because at least Xbox is, you know, Gamecast is just such a direct competitor, whereas EA Access is a little different.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Stadia would be tough to imagine on Xbox.
It's one of those things where, like, the Amazon Fire Sticks and Fire TVs, right? You could still download Netflix and Hulu on those devices, even though Amazon competes against them with their own streaming service, right? It could be sort of that, where at the end of the day, it's better to be open, even if it seems counterintuitive to selling your specific service. I don't know.
These are bloody fights, you know, between these companies, and
it's a valid point.
I'm glad you brought that up, Dom, because it is absolutely. But something interesting off of that is until maybe the last couple years, I think Amazon was not available on Apple TV, or certain times it wasn't. It had been taken off, and I even remember watching a panel where Jeff Bezos was kind of being questioned about that, and it's the same thing. Like
some of those walls still exist too.
Yeah,
right. Like Amazon owns Comixology, and so when you're like doing Comixology stuff in the app, I think if you actually want to buy something, you have to jump out of the app into the browser because they don't want to give Apple that 30% cut. And I think that's where the debate with Amazon being on Apple TV was, with the whole cut, who gets what. And so there's always this give and take. It's kind of like a Game of Thrones situation, which is probably a reference I'll be making less often in the future, unfortunately. But it is kind of a situation with like uneasy alliances, and there's some backstabbing, and then there's some handshaking in the public eye and all that. So
the one thing I will say is Sony, as we've seen the last couple of years, has been very standoffish. This to me is a clear sign that Gaikai probably wasn't panning out, or they weren't necessarily confident in their own infrastructure or the ability to do it without spending a lot of money. This to me is like Sony admitting defeat, but in a good way, because they understood the problem before it occurred. Yeah. Because like we've seen how
Something
walled
interesting-
off Sony is. Like they don't want to do anything with anybody.
right.
So
Something interesting I thought of recently is within the last 2 years, Sony has, this is a fact, they have decreased or increased the cost of PlayStation Plus, right? It is factual that they increased the cost $10 fall of, I think, 17. And it is factual that they have decreased the amount of value by like PS3 and Vita games just disappearing off of the basically free games every month, and nothing replacing it. So you've literally seen a tangible loss in value and a tangible increase in price. And
You
I
hope
just
at
think,
least.
like, how much fucking hubris do you have to say, yeah, within 2 years, the span of 2 years, we're gonna say, yeah, start paying us more, and then less than 2 years later, yeah, we're also decreasing the value right in front of your face. I mean, it's not even like backhanded, read the fine print stuff. It's right in front of your face. So that
You
is,
hope at least that they've been improving stability, and I don't know, like if
I
that's
don't
true
see
or
it.
not.
I don't
but
see it. I mean,
they've
the
had-
store doesn't load half the time. The upload download speeds are abysmal compared to Xbox and Microsoft's network.
True.
when I first found
yeah,
out about
so I'm
that,
not
that
seeing
stuff was
it.
crazy. I was like, whoa. When you see the
Dude,
numbers,
I
it's like,
mean,
oh god.
And like Jared, you know me, I've had both consoles basically this whole time. So I would sit there and go back and forth on the same fucking network and get 4 or 5 times the speed.
Yeah.
With like, it's not even like one of them's Ethernet and one of them's Wi-Fi. It's like, no, this is the same deal, and you are shitting a brick, PlayStation.
Before we hop to the Mario Maker Direct stuff, real quick, do you guys assume that... So we're assuming that PS5 is backwards compatible because Cerny said as much, right? When that's been going a bit, do you think that the PlayStation Plus will eventually be PS5 games and PS4 games? Since it will be back compat?
Probably. They might be
well, the
smaller
thing you gotta realize with
Yeah.
that
PS5 games
is
at first.
Yeah, true.
they like when PS4 was released, they immediately added that, you know.
Yeah.
But it was kind of weird, like the examples of games that they were giving out, because you were used to coming off of PS3. By the end of the PS3 generation, when PlayStation Plus started, they're giving you like AAA games, right? Which is what they're doing now with PS4 games. So the thing is, I think you will have PS5, but it's going to be, you know, Resogun 2 type of thing. It's going to be all indie, which unfortunately is non-existent because that is no longer a feasible game model, I guess, to make for Housemarque, unfortunately. But you're going to be getting indie games for a very long time if they do automatically add that.
I guess my question there wasn't that you wouldn't be getting PS5 games, that you would be but rather that you would be getting both PS5 and PS4 games, you know?
Yes, I do think you will.
I would think.
And of course, you know, you'll be able to play the PS4 games, but you'll probably be getting, you know,
Black
there
Tiger
are giveaway
5-star
games.
whatever that game is.
Well, you'll be getting Cuphead on PlayStation. No, you know, like that style, like that you know, single A type of indie game versus the PlayStation 4 games that you'll be getting are going to be where they're at now with the AAA stuff.
Yeah. Let's get to the Super Mario Maker 2 Direct so we can close out the show. So, it was a pretty cool Direct, about 15 minutes. I was already sold on this game. One thing that I think that we'll get to midway through is something that could win over people that were on the fence. First off, they showed off new creation features. So, we got slopes, we got snake blocks, we got level scrolling that you can customize. We got the 3D world style. Whoa, hold on 1 second. My notes disappeared. Let me pull them back up.
Whoa. Super Mario Maker 2.
There we go.
Dom, on a scale of 1 to yes, how amazing do you think my Mario impression is?
I'm ready to go.
Yes, I think it's good.
So,
Super Mario Maker 2!
in addition to the level themes that already existed, that being the castle and the grass and all those normal ones that were in the original Mario Maker, they've added a forest theme, a desert theme, a snow theme, and a sky theme. The The 3D world style is listed under extra game styles. This is something that people noticed. And in the extra game styles, there's an empty slot, meaning that something's probably going to go there, right? Because with Nintendo design, they tend to not have an empty area unless it's going to be used, right, with their UI and stuff.
Yeah.
So people assume there's going to be DLC. The big front runners in terms of rumors or ideas or theories is either Paper Mario or 64. People also think that maybe Super Mario Brothers 2, but that has a completely different gameplay style. So
the whole 64 thing is ridiculous. Paper Mario is relatively in the realm of possibility, but you're changing the medium of the game when you go from 2D to 3D. Now, they could maybe do some version of 64 in 2D, but we all know that was not the best looking generation. Why would you want to add that unless it's 3D? So unless they're going to just have one random mode that is, totally changes the matrix of input and all that, it's like that's very, very different from what Mario Maker is. Whereas Paper Mario, it's like, essentially a filter. Essentially you're just changing the look of things.
Well, I think the reason people have a little belief in it is that 3D World is also plays in 3D perspective, but in Super Mario Maker 2, it's only 2D levels. So.
Yes, but isn't that essentially just the Super Mario Bros. U style? Is it
no, because it's like a lot of cat stuff.
You didn't convince me there.
I don't know how to explain it. It's like
I know what you mean. But the cat suits is not changing, the format of the game. And even still, those those Nintendo 64 graphics, the way that textures are pasted on objects is very, very different.
It would also look hideous in 2D. I'm with you. I don't think they do it.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying is what the fuck are you people talking about Super Mario 64? Now, if you want to make a whole separate game where the a $30 expansion pass to this game is a big Super Mario 64 thing where it's all 3D editing, but the whole thing about Mario Maker is jumping back and forth between styles and pieces and all that and just grabbing and go. And there's no way that you can jump back and forth, or there's no way that you would want to see that in 2D. So it's ridiculous.
The thing with the 3D World style too is you can't jump back and forth with that and the other ones. Once you use that style, it completely changes the level and it has to be a different level.
See, that's what I needed earlier, not...
Yeah.
Well, there's more cat stuff.
More cat stuff.
Well, that wasn't you said it was the new Super Mario Brothers U style, but 3D World obviously goes into a 3D space, which is, the difference.
I think I get it.
Yeah, whatever. Let's just move on to multiplayer. So there's going to be local 2-player creation. So if you have a Joy-Con, you can... if you have a 2 Joy-Cons, you can pass one to a friend. You both can create locally. There is local 4-player play, but it has to be one of the 4 people has to be online in order for it to work. So there's no true offline 4-player co-op. Also, on the online version of multiplayer, you have versus mode, which is 4 people going through a level. Whoever finishes it first wins. And there's co-op, which is you all work together to get to the end of the level. One of the biggest things, this is the thing I was mentioning in terms of winning some people over, there's a story mode. So the story mode is Peach's castle is destroyed and you need to rebuild it. The way you rebuild it is you play through levels and you earn coins to buy upgrades for the castle. And there's over 100 Nintendo-created levels. So these are handmade, crafted levels to teach you about the game. It's just like a Mario game.
Jared, certain things, I'm saying this to you, Mr. Nintendo. I'm saying this to you, Nintendo, not Jared, Mr. Nintendo. Not everything needs a fucking story mode, okay? If Tennis Aces is any indicator, not everything needs a story mode, okay? We can chill with the fucking story modes.
Well, I think they
need you to focus on making a decent game.
Yeah, I think they added this because...
I'm jaded, Jared. I'm sorry, but I don't know why I have to worry about rocket health.
They added a story mode with the 100 Nintendo created levels because I think people want there to be a solid game there outside of the creation stuff. So I think they're just kind of covering all their bases, which is cool. So that's pretty much it for the story mode. You unlock different levels of the castle as you build it, and there's other varying challenges from other characters that don't necessarily tie into the direct story mode. You can help other companions and stuff. Nintendo Online. You have to have a Nintendo Online subscription to do online, obviously, for this game and upload your levels. One of the cool things is that downloaded courses can be played offline. So you can bulk up and download a bunch of cool courses you want to check out, be away from the internet, and still be able to play them, which is really cool for plane flights or traveling or whatever.
In OG version?
I'm not sure.
Download and play offline?
It from people's reaction, it doesn't seem like it, but I don't know for sure if that's the case or not. Another thing that I saw people celebrating is the curation and search tools on this seem much improved from the original. People are saying that they're almost non-existent in the original Mario Maker.
Dude, the way people talked about it in the original Mario Maker, the only reason it made sense is because I knew how Nintendo does like friend codes.
Yeah.
You know? Where it's like, oh, you guys are fucking idiots when it comes to this. Yeah, I guess that makes sense why you would make this just, piss poor discovery tool. And we've talked obviously about the store and all that. But like, yeah, the way people describe the original Mario Maker, it's like, who in the hell thought that was a good idea to organize levels that way?
They also announced the Super Mario Maker 2 Invitational happening June 8th, which is the beginning of E3 that weekend. There's new music in this game by Super Mario composer Koji Kondo. Sounds really good. There's some remixes to some classic tunes that people really enjoyed. I thought it was dope too. I'm not super attached to Mario music, but it is iconic, very iconic. So at the end, they showed 2 special purchase choices, promotional offers. One, for $70, you can get the game and 12 months of Nintendo Online, so you're saving $10. Which is a good deal. I mean, if you're planning on playing online, it's saving $10 to get both, right? The other one is weird.
If I were gonna buy the game, that's what I'd buy.
The other one is weird. So it doesn't have to do anything specifically with Super Mario Maker 2, but they introduced a thing that if you have a Nintendo Online subscription, you can buy this thing for $100. And what it does is it gives you 2 vouchers. Then you can exchange for any eligible Nintendo games. It seems like it's all first-party Nintendo published games. And you can redeem those for the games. So essentially what it's used for is, say I buy the $70 version of Super Mario Maker 2, right, Jordan? I get Super Mario Maker 2, I get the 1 year of Nintendo Online. Say this fall comes around, and I'm planning on getting Animal Crossing and Pokemon, right? $120 right there. We're assuming this new Pokemon will be $60 for the sake of this example.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm going to buy both of those, and they're coming out near each other, and I'm buying them at launch. That's $120 plus tax. I'm just going to spend $100 on this thing, get those 2 vouchers, and get those games, and save myself $20. It's essentially what it's for, The cool thing with the vouchers is that you don't have to use them both at the same time, and but you have to use them within a year. So if you could just buy it in advance, and say you want to get, I don't know what game's coming out early next year. Let's just say for the sake of argument, it's
definitely Metroid Prime 4, Jared.
Yeah, let's say Metroid Prime 4 is coming out in March, right? So you could buy the thing now.
A year after they restart the game.
Exactly. You can buy the vouchers now, get Pokemon when it comes out, and save that voucher for when Metroid Prime comes out. It's a little weird, but it is.
You can get vouchers by purchasing Mario Maker, right?
No. These are separate from Mario Maker. For $100, you get 2 vouchers.
I was like, well, how is this connected to Mario Maker?
It isn't. I think they needed to advertise this, and they're like, let's just stick this on the end of this direct.
Well, then, if I don't have to buy Mario Maker to do that, hell yeah, I'm going to do this, because I'm obviously going to buy 2 Nintendo games.
And you already have Nintendo Online, so you're just going to save yourself $20, right? So
you have to have Nintendo Online to buy the vouchers?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought you said.
And they're tied to your account, so I don't know if you can subscribe, buy the vouchers, then just when you need to use them, subscribe again. But then you would be using money because it's like $5 a month. So why wouldn't you just buy a year in advance for
This sounds like another example of Nintendo giving you basically free money in an easy way to redeem.
Dude,
like
and then if you
in the shop.
Yeah, you save $20 and you get those coins, Jordan, for both of those purchases. Maybe they'll be eligible. Well, no. I'm saying because when you buy games, you get the coins, right?
When you use the voucher, you probably won't get coins.
Yeah, I just thought about that. So I'm getting Super Mario Maker 2, and I'm buying the $70 version, Jordan, for the 12 months of Nintendo Online, because if I can get it for half off, might as well just get it. Also, I know the cloud saving thing. You're like, how the hell do you guys not have it? And I'm really sure that Animal Crossing is coming out this year, and I'm definitely getting Pokemon. So I'm eventually just going to buy the voucher and save $20 and get both of those games. That's my game plan. So
now, okay, you said like I could buy the non-existent Metroid Prime next year. Is it gonna run out sometime at some point?
Yes, a year from purchase, they're no.
Okay, so
but you don't have to use them at the same time. So you can like use one now and then use one later.
Definitely getting Pokemon. Is there another Nintendo?
Link's Awakening, but that probably won't be 60. That's the thing. I can't think of any other big Bayonetta 3 maybe?
Fire Emblem
as well, yeah.
Is it going to be... Can I get the vouchers before Fire Emblem comes out?
Yeah, I think the vouchers are currently live, I'm pretty sure, on the eShop. If not, they're launching by the time Mario Maker 2 comes out.
We're about to find out!
Anyways, we're going to close out the show while Jordan's checking that. We'll have him go last in terms of what he's playing so we can look for his Switch. In terms of what I'm going to be playing, Dom, are we going to beat Sekiro this week?
I hope so, man. I don't know.
It's tough. Honestly, Dom, this is a boss that I'm not sure I'm going to beat for a while because I don't know if I'm going to have the time to be able to sit there for a 6-hour stretch and just gut it out, you know? He's tough. And I know it's all about learning, and we talked about, like, you're the same way. We can get through the first phase without getting hit. It's just the second phase is such a change that it's hard to wrap my mind around. We'll eventually get it. I think so. I don't know if this week, but we will, hopefully.
It has to happen.
Oh, dude,
something I'm stopping.
Something I've been meaning to talk about. I played Joker in Smash. That was pretty cool.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
What's the other thing I'm going to be playing? Oh, so Rage 2 reviewed okay. It reviewed like Days Gone, like what, low 70s, right? 72, 73 or whatever. Great shooting. The rest of the world doesn't seem very entertaining. So remember I talked about if it was getting good reviews, I'd get it at launch. I didn't get it at launch because the reviews were like meh. So instead, Activision, I'm using them correctly this time, had a sale, and I got the Spyro remaster that I've been meaning to get around to for $30. So spent half the money I was going to spend. I can't wait to jump into those. Honestly, Dom, I was thinking about jumping into them after Sekiro, but what I think I might do is just give Sekiro a college try for a while, then go and ease off with Spyro and then come back to it, you know?
Man, I can't do that. I get obsessive, and I have a personal vendetta right now against the old Sword Saint, and I have to win, and I will not stop until it's done.
Ooh.
Yeah, I might get like that
Alliance
too.
3. That's another game that could possibly be...
True. I didn't know that was 60, so that's a good point.
I mean, I know you can't like totally read it, but yeah, you get them 2 vouchers you can purchase for $100 right now.
That's pretty much it for me. There's a movie coming out this weekend I think I want to see. I think Booksmart comes out this weekend. It's essentially super bad but with 2 girls, and it looks really funny and it's getting really good buzz. So, want to check that out.
Eligible for up to plus 500 coins, baby.
Hell yeah, so we get coins along with it, which go to the next purchase.
Dude,
nice.
Nintendo's giving you money right now. Like, if you're playing their games, like, if you're going to play their games, they're just giving you money.
That's it for me. Dom, outside of Sekiro, anything else?
That's it, man. Like I said, it's a vendetta.
Jordan, what are you going to be playing? Your mystery game, obviously.
The Game of Secrets. So yeah, we'll definitely mess around with that a little bit, and see if I break out my Switch. And then you mentioned Dragon Ball / DBZ possibly being your favorite anime of all time, Jared. And I am almost finished with my full watch of the original Dragon Ball series.
Ooh, cool.
And I've also been watching the movies along with it. And I just want to give a huge shout out to Dragon Ball, man. Dragon Ball and Pokemon are absolutely the reason that I'm into anime and so much Japanese culture that I'm into. Both the shows and the games were big in that becoming a thing for me early on. I don't know if I told the story.
Whoa!
Maybe I'll tell the long version.
You read it too, Jared?
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, Jordan. They just announced who's playing Batman in the Matt Reeves Batman movie.
Oh my goodness, you guys I thought that you guys saw a spirit behind me. I thought
no.
that you guys were like, Jordan, are you still there? Where did you go?
No,
like,
I was.
You guys are right here.
I was checking to see if any like crazy gaming news like broke while we were filming, because I tend to do that when we're near the end of the show just to see if there's something to mention, right? And the top thing is Robert Pattinson to play the Batman.
Whoa, dude.
He's a great actor. People shit on him. He's a very good actor. I'm interested to see what his take will be.
Sure, it's just that we finally got a big dude to play Batman and Ben Affleck, and it made a difference.
Yeah, but people have...
Like, Christian Bale is not as menacing. Like, you kind of need somebody to, like, tower over somebody. And think about those scenes, some of the only good scenes in BVS, where he is just...
a monster.
Murking those dudes in the warehouse. Like,
I love it.
Can you imagine Pattinson doing that and you not thinking it looks dumb because there's no way a guy like that could lift those guys in that way? Like,
he better bulk up.
It makes sense. Yeah, I don't know, man. But then again, that's what I said about Gal Gadot when she was coming through for Wonder Woman. I was like, Wonder Woman is not supposed to be a supermodel stick figure, you know, and she bulked up for that, and also I think she... still looks like a relatively skinny Wonder Woman, but not nearly as bad as I thought.
And on the plus side, because I want DC to succeed like Marvel has, right? Because competition's great for both. He's only 32, which means if things go well, we could have Batman for a while, which is great. So
yeah,
we'll see.
Not who I would have picked, but I don't hate on Robert Pattinson.
It's interesting
That he actually is a solid actor. Like, I've seen him in some cool stuff. So. Anyways.
Sorry, go ahead.
We were talking about the Holy Dragon Ball.
Sorry to interrupt you again. I apologize.
Fucking Christ!
This is right under this. Ric Flair passed away, apparently, just a couple of hours ago.
Woo!
Wow. Anyways, go ahead.
I'm not cheering that he died. I was like,
yeah,
doing the Ric Flair thing in salute.
That's crazy. Sorry, those are like two bombshells, dude. Like, whoa. Sorry. Anyways,
Ric Flair's playing Batman and Robert Pattinson died. That's fucked up, man.
As you were saying about Dragon Ball, I apologize.
Yeah, the holy grail of Japanese IP, Dragon Ball. Yes, so I'm almost finished with the original run, which is like 150 episodes. I'll be jumping into the near 300 episode Dragon Ball Z original version, not Kai. And I will be watching the standard Blu-ray sets, which have removed the grain. I know a lot of people are upset about that, but they still look great. And, you know, it's Dragon Ball in HD, and you got some audio options because, oddly enough, did you boys know that Dragon Ball Z has both a Japanese score and an American score, which is not something that anime does?
I think I've heard that before.
The Bruce Falconer score that Funimation did?
Yeah, so I love Dragon Ball. My best friend is like obsessive about it. Like it's like some people at the office where they just put it on and rewatch like 9 to 11 times, right?
Right.
He's like that with Dragon Ball, so he's like all up into that. I remember him mentioning that once. So
yeah. And the funny thing about it is, you know, as hardcore as anime fans are, a lot of people are like, you know what? It's actually pretty damn good. And some people even think that it's better.
Ooh.
So the cool thing is you could watch, you know, Japanese voices with Japanese score. You could watch English dub with Japanese score or English dub with English American score. So maybe I'll have to go through the whole 300 episodes twice. Probably not anytime soon. But, like, that would be perfect for, you know, like you were saying, it's one of my favorite properties of all time, Jared. When I'm 35, I might want to go back through it and I'll be like, oh, I'll do the other score. Anyways, yeah, I mean, if you don't know about Dragon Ball, like, I'm not gonna try to describe it to you. It's you know, anime superheroes, I guess you could say, with a heavy dose of martial arts. But it is a fantastic show in anime, and there's plenty of stuff that's dumb about it. There's plenty of stuff to make fun of, just like with any of this shit, with anything that has ever existed. But for the most part, there's a lot of cool shit too, man. Dragon Ball Z, I should say, was one of those series that had the problem of adapting its manga and catching up too quickly. So they did the opposite of what Full Metal Alchemist did, and they decided to just stretch things out and do a lot of filler, whereas Full Metal Alchemist decided to make up their own ending. And there's pros and cons to both of those situations, but yeah, the Dragon Ball saga, as it's kind of called, with DB, DBZ, Dragon Ball Super, and GT. There's obviously hundreds of episodes to watch, but it is something special, man. And like I said, one of my favorite properties of all time. Goku's one of my favorite characters of all time, and so yeah, just huge shout out to that, and finishing up the original series. It's been so much fun, and I'm definitely, Jared, you can attest to this. There's a big difference between Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. It's all based on the same manga, Dragon Ball, but they definitely shift in Dragon Ball Z to a lot more action oriented and a lot less like goofy, fun time humor stuff. So Dragon Ball is a much slower show. I remember as a kid, it was like, yes, I like watching when Dragon Ball episodes are on Cartoon Network, but it's like, dude, it's not nearly as good as Dragon Ball Z, because when you're a kid, those Dragon Ball Z fights are the fucking shit. So
yeah.
There's my Dragon Ball tribute.
Thank you guys for listening. Next week we'll be back on, all three of us. Like I said, in the coming weeks we're gonna have our E3 episodes, talking about the predictions, what we think is going to happen, what we saw last year, how that leans into this year. No Sony this year, but that's fine. There's a bunch of other cool conferences to talk about. Wish we'd be talking about Sony, but they decided not to, so that's that. If you can, please follow us on YouTube. Subscribe there. Hit the bell notifications so you know when we upload. Like the video as well. It helps us out. On iTunes, if you leave us a review, helps with the algorithm. We move up the charts and people can see our podcast. We want to grow, so if you can do that, that helps as well. On Twitter, you can find us at CTRLINT, that's Controlled Interests Abbreviated. You can find me at Jared _. You can find Dom at Dom's Oreos, and you can find Jordan at Melomotus. Yeah, tune in. We're going to have some really cool E3 episodes. And worst case scenario, if there's not a lot of news in the coming weeks with people holding out for E3, we'll do some topics and stuff. We'll just see what happens, but there'll probably be enough news with people leaking. We'll probably see the next Assassin's Creed leak, as it usually does with Ubisoft, even though it's a year away. But yeah, I'll catch you guys next week. Bye.